The quantum communications array aboard the ESS Resilient hummed to life, startling Commander Sarah Chen from her review of the ship's maintenance logs. The signal was unlike anything she'd seen before, a pattern that defied standard encryption protocols, yet carried an unmistakable rhythm of intelligence. Multiple unknown vessels detected, Commander. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station, dark eyes fixed on a holographic display. They're coming out of what appears to be an artificial wormhole. Sarah stood, her muscles automatically compensating for the ship's artificial gravity as she approached the main viewport. The sight before her defied explanation. 7 ships of distinctly alien design, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent material unknown to human engineering, emerged from a swirling tear in space-time. "Life signs?" she asked, maintaining the calm demeanor that had earned her command of humanity's most advanced deep space vessel. "Confirmed." But Rodriguez paused, rechecking his readings. The environmental conditions aboard those ships would be lethal to humans. Atmosphere is primarily chlorine, temperature hovering around 150 degrees Celsius. Before Sarah could respond, the quantum array pulsed again. This time, patterns began forming in the ship's universal translator, desperate pleas for help in mathematics, the universal language of space. "They're refugees," Dr. Emily Wong, the ship's xenobiologist, announced as she burst onto the bridge. "Their chemical signatures match nothing in our database, but their ship designs, they're Araxi. We thought they were just legends." The Araxi, a species mentioned in ancient ruins discovered on Mars, known for their mastery of biotechnology, before mysteriously vanishing from the galaxy. Now they were here, at the edge of human space, clearly running from something. "Commander," Rodriguez's voice cracked. "They're being pursued. Multiple hostile signatures emerging from the wormhole." The pursuing vessels were darker, organic-looking things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As Sarah watched, one of them fired what appeared to be a living projectile that latched onto the nearest Araxi ship, beginning to spread across its hull like a cancer. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Spaceship Resilient." She broadcast on all frequencies. "We stand ready to assist." She turned to her crew. "Prepare for emergency rescue operations. Dr. Wong, you have 1 hour to figure out how to safely transfer chlorine-breathing aliens into our containment chambers." "But Commander," her first officer protested, "our protocols for first contact will be written by what we do here today." Sarah finished. "Humanity didn't come this far into space to watch refugees die on our doorstep. Launch the defense drones. Show these hostiles what happens when they bring a fight to human space." The ESS Resilience drone swarm deployed, their quantum processors already adapting to the organic nature of the enemy weapons. Sarah knew she was potentially starting humanity's first interstellar conflict, but something deep in her bones told her this was right. Earth had taught humanity hard lessons about survival, about adapting to face any threat. Now those lessons would serve them well. As her crew sprang into action with practiced efficiency, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just survive on their death world. They had learned to thrive there. And now they would use those skills to protect others who needed their help. The battle that followed would change galactic history forever, but not for the reasons anyone expected. It wasn't humanity's weapons or technology that would leave the greatest impact. It was their unwavering determination to help others survive against impossible odds. After all, that's what humans did best: turn survival into something more, something greater than mere existence. What no one knew yet was that this was just the beginning. The threats pursuing the Araxi were merely the advanced scouts of something far worse. But for the first time in galactic history, such threats would face a species that had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and learned to smile at the challenge. The emergency quarantine bay of the ESS Resilient had never been designed for this. Dr. Emily Wong watched through triple-layered observation windows as the rescued Araxi moved in their pressurized chlorine environment. their crystalline bodies refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. But it wasn't their alien beauty that captivated her. It was their terror. They call themselves the Harvesters. The ship's AI translated as the Araxi Elder, a being named Crystal Song in storms, communicated through a series of light pulses. They seed worlds with their spores, converting all organic matter into their own biomass. Our civilization had fought them for 300 cycles before we fell. Commander Chen stood beside Emily, her expression grim. How many worlds have they taken? 17 in the last stellar cycle alone. Crystal Song's lights flickered. Your rescue of our remnant was brave. But the aliens' crystalline structure dimmed. You cannot comprehend what you now face. The spores they fired at our ships, they're already adapting to your drone's materials. Emily's tablet chimed with an alert from the science lab. The analysis of the organic projectiles was complete, and the results made her breath catch. Commander, you need to see this. The spores, they're not just consuming materials. They're rewriting molecular structures, turning everything they touch into more of themselves. It's like a viral infection on a macro scale. Can we stop it? Emily started to say no, to explain how impossible the task was, but then she remembered something from her studies on Earth. Actually, we might be able to. On Earth, we have organisms that can survive almost anywhere. Extremophiles. Some bacteria can even metabolize metals. If we could adapt them. Like a vaccine. Sarah's eyes lit up with understanding. Using Earth's extreme life forms to fight these spores. More than that, Emily felt excitement building as the idea took shape. Earth's organisms evolved through constant competition. Everything on our world had to adapt or die. These harvester spores may be engineered for conquest, but our microbes evolved through billions of years of warfare on a molecular level. Crystal Song's lights pulsed rapidly as the translation came through. You would fight a biological weapon with natural life forms from your world. The alien's tone carried clear disbelief. You don't understand, Emily smiled. Earth isn't just a world that tried to kill us. It's a world where everything is trying to kill everything else, all the time. And that means everything that survived had to become incredibly good at staying alive. Commander Chen was already accessing the ship's communication array. I'm contacting Earth. We need a team of microbiologists and our best samples of extremophile bacteria. Doctor, how quickly can you set up a testing protocol? Give me 6 hours in the main lab. Emily was already making calculations. But Commander, this is going to be dangerous. If these spores adapt to our countermeasures, then we'll adapt faster. Sarah's voice carried the steel conviction that had made her one of Earth's youngest starship commanders. That's what humans do best. As the crew sprang into action, Emily caught Crystal Song emanating patterns that the translator couldn't quite capture, something between awe and fear. The alien had probably never encountered a species that would willingly work with microscopic killers, let alone one that had evolved alongside them. But that was humanity's secret weapon. Earth had never been just their home. It had been their teacher, their training ground, forcing them to become masters of adaptation and survival. Now, those lessons would serve not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. What the Harvesters didn't know was that they weren't just facing another spacefaring species. They were about to go up against billions of years of evolutionary warfare, against organisms that had survived 5 mass extinctions and countless attempts at annihilation. They were about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, not because it killed everything, but because it made everything strong enough to survive anywhere. As Emily began preparing the lab for its new role as a battlefield in this microscopic war, she couldn't help but feel a fierce pride. Humanity was about to show the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't the ones you build. They're the ones that evolved alongside you on a world that never stopped trying to kill you. The main laboratory of the ESS Resilient had transformed into something that would have looked more at home in Earth's evolutionary past. Steam rose from carefully controlled bacterial cultures, each containing organisms that had survived in the planet's most extreme environments. The air was thick with the smell of growth medium and the subtle tang of carefully controlled decay. The tardigrades are adapting faster than expected, Dr. Emily Wong announced, not looking up from her microscope. The tiny water bears, practically indestructible organisms from Earth, were already showing signs of incorporating the harvester spore's genetic material, but instead of being consumed, they were breaking it down. Commander Sarah Chen watched through a protective barrier as another test culture changed color, indicating success. How soon can we weaponize this? That's the beautiful part. Emily finally looked up, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. We don't need to weaponize them. Earth's extremophiles are already perfect weapons. They just need the right environment to thrive. On the other side of the lab, crystal song in storms observed with increasingly rapid light patterns. The Araxi Elder had insisted on being present, despite the environmental suit needed to protect them from Earth's organisms. Your world's life forms, they consume the unconsuming. They destroy the destroyers. How is this possible? Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had volunteered to assist in the lab, answered while carefully transferring samples. On Earth, there's no such thing as an unstoppable predator. Everything has something that can kill it, break it down, and use it for survival. Even our deadliest bacteria have viruses that hunt them. The ship's quantum array suddenly pulsed with new data. The harvester vessels had been detected approaching a populated world in a nearby system. They had less than 48 hours before the first spores would make contact. Time to field test our solution, Sarah decided. Dr. Wong, what's our most promising candidate? Emily gestured to a sealed container holding a swirling black liquid, a combination of thermophilic bacteria from deep-sea vents, modified tardigrades, and a particularly aggressive strain of metal-eating bacteria. They work together in a symbiotic relationship we didn't even have to engineer. They figured it out themselves. Like humans, Crystal Song's lights pulsed thoughtfully, different groups working together, becoming stronger than they could be alone. Sarah smiled. Exactly. Earth taught us that survival isn't just about being the strongest. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and turning hostile environments into advantages. The next hours were a blur of activity as they prepared delivery systems for their biological countermeasure. The resilience manufacturing units worked overtime, producing specially designed missiles that would spread Earth's microscopic warriors in a perfect dispersal pattern. There's something you should know, Emily said as they made final preparations. These organisms, they're still evolving. Every generation, they're getting better at breaking down the harvester spores. They're learning, adapting, becoming something new. Just like us. Sarah nodded. Humanity didn't survive Earth by staying the same. We survived by changing, by turning our challenges into strengths. Crystal Song moved closer to the observation window, their crystalline body reflecting the lab's harsh lights. We Araxi sought to perfect ourselves through engineering, to rise above the need for adaptation. Perhaps that was our mistake. As the Resilient prepared for battle, Emily watched her cultures continuing to evolve. The harvesters had created their spores to be the perfect consumers, but they had never faced life forms that had evolved on a world where consumption itself was an art form, where every organism had to master the dance of predator and prey or face extinction. They were about to learn that Earth's greatest gift to humanity wasn't just the strength to survive. It was the understanding that true strength comes from endless adaptation, from embracing change rather than fearing it. The harvesters thought they had perfected biological warfare, but they were about to face organisms that had been waging war since the first cells divided in Earth's primordial seas. As the ship moved into position for the coming battle, Sarah looked at her crew, human, Araxi, and now Earth's smallest warriors, all united in a fight for survival. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. A species using its Deathworld origins not for conquest, but for protection, turning the very forces that had tried to kill them into guardians of life itself. The bridge of the ESS Resilient hummed with nervous energy as they approached the target system. On the main display, the harvester vessels moved with unsettling organic grace, their living hulls pulsing with malevolent purpose. But Commander Sarah Chen's attention was focused on something else, the incoming transmission from Earth's Unified Defense Command. The Chinese deep-sea research team has modified their pressure-resistant bacteria strains, Dr. Emily Wong reported, reading from the latest data packet. The Indian Botanical Institute has provided engineered fungi that can break down complex molecular structures, and the Brazilian Rainforest Preservation Group has isolated parasitic organisms that specifically target invasive species. A global response, crystal song in storms observed from their environmental chamber on the bridge. Your world's nations compete, yet they unite against external threats. Sarah smiled. Earth taught us that competition and cooperation aren't opposites. They're two sides of the same coin. Different approaches, different solutions, all working toward survival. Lieutenant Rodriguez's console suddenly flashed red. Commander, the harvesters are launching their first wave of spores toward the colony world. Population 3 million, mostly agricultural settlements. Deploy our countermeasures, Sarah ordered. All variants, maximum dispersal pattern. Let's show them what Earth's children can do. The Resilience launch tubes fired in rapid succession, each missile carrying a different combination of Earth's defensive organisms. As they watched, the missiles intercepted the harvester spores, creating clouds of microscopic warfare that lit up the ship's sensors with intense biological activity. The Australian extremophiles are making first contact, Emily reported, watching the data stream. They're not just fighting the spores, they're transforming them, using their own biological material to create new defensive barriers. Crystal Song's lights pulsed with amazement. Your organisms don't just destroy, they rebuild. Life on Earth isn't just about survival, Emily explained, her eyes bright with pride. It's about transformation. When something dies, other organisms break it down, recycle it, turn it into something new. Nothing is ever truly wasted. The battle unfolding before them defied conventional military doctrine. Instead of explosions and energy weapons, they watched as Earth's microscopic warriors engaged the harvester spores in an invisible but crucial war. Each strain of bacteria, each modified fungus, each engineered protist brought billions of years of evolutionary experience to the fight. The Nordic lichen variants are establishing themselves on the harvester ship hulls, Rodriguez reported. They're breaking down the organic components. The ships are starting to lose structural integrity. Sarah watched as the supposedly invincible harvester vessels began to deteriorate under the assault of Earth's most resilient life forms. But something else was happening too, something unexpected. The organisms aren't just attacking. Emily's voice was filled with wonder. They're creating a new ecosystem. The broken-down harvester biomass is being converted into a protective layer around the colony world. Our defensive organisms are turning the weapon into a shield. Crystal Song moved closer to the display, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion. Your world's life. It doesn't just consume or destroy. It transforms, adapts, creates. That's the real lesson Earth taught us, Sarah said softly. True strength isn't about being the biggest or most dangerous. It's about being able to change, to take what tries to kill you and make it part of your strength. As they watched, the harvester vessels began to retreat, their living hulls literally being eaten away by organisms that had evolved in Earth's harshest environments. But they weren't just being destroyed. They were being transformed, their very substance becoming part of a new defensive system that would protect the colony world. Send the data to Earth, Sarah ordered. All of it. Every nation, every research institute. Let them see what their contributions accomplished together. The victory they were witnessing wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to take their world's harshest lessons and turn them into tools for protection and growth. As the last harvester ship fled the system, leaving behind a transformed battlefield that would puzzle xenobiologists for generations to come, Sarah thought about Earth, their beautiful, terrible, wonderful world that had forced them to become what they were. Not just survivors, but innovators. Not just warriors, but creators. 6 months after the battle that changed galactic history, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council bore little resemblance to its former austere glory. Vegetation from Earth now grew in carefully maintained habitats along its walls, extremophile plants that could survive in almost any environment, their presence a living reminder of how the galaxy had transformed. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives of over 300 species, her dress uniform adorned with the newly created Galactic Defense Medal. Beside her, Dr. Emily Wong prepared their presentation, while Crystal Song in Storms gleamed with anticipation. "The harvester threat has been permanently neutralized," Sarah announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Not through destruction, but through transformation. The Earth-based organisms we deployed didn't just defeat their biological weapons, they converted them into protective ecosystems on 17 previously vulnerable worlds." The chamber's holographic display activated, showing time-lapse footage of a former harvester vessel. Its organic hull hadn't been destroyed. Instead, it had been transformed into a living shield barrier, powered by the same biological processes that had once made it a weapon. What we witnessed wasn't just a victory in combat. Emily took over, her excitement visible as she gestured to the display. It was the beginning of a new understanding of life itself. Earth's organisms didn't just fight. They adapted, incorporated, and improved upon what they encountered. Crystal Song moved forward, their crystalline form now housing small colonies of protective Earth bacteria that helped them survive in non-chlorine environments. "My people sought to perfect life through engineering. Humanity showed us that true perfection lies in imperfection, in the ability to change, to grow, to become something new." The display shifted to show scenes from various worlds, former harvester strongholds now flourishing with new forms of life that combined Earth's resilient organisms with local biology. Planets once thought uninhabitable were showing signs of developing sustainable ecosystems. "We propose," Sarah continued, "the establishment of the Galactic Biological Defense Initiative. Earth's nations have already agreed to share our biological diversity, our understanding of evolution and adaptation, not as weapons, but as tools for protection and growth." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives still showed fear of Earth's organisms, but more displayed fascination and hope. They had seen how humanity's deadly world had produced exactly what the galaxy needed: life forms capable of turning destruction into creation. "There will be those who fear this power," a crystalline elder spoke from the council's high seat. "Those who say we are playing with forces we cannot control." "With respect," Emily replied, "that's exactly what Earth taught us, that life cannot and should not be controlled. It should be understood, guided, and allowed to adapt. Every attempt to create the perfect weapon or the perfect defense fails because perfection itself is stagnation. True strength lies in imperfection, in the constant drive to adapt and improve." Sarah stepped forward again. "We're not offering to make the galaxy more like Earth. We're offering to help each world find its own path to resilience. Earth's organisms aren't replacing local life. They're helping it adapt, become stronger, more diverse." The display showed one final image, a time-lapse of a barren world transformed over 6 months into a flourishing ecosystem. What had once been a harvester staging ground was now a living laboratory of evolution and adaptation. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," Sarah concluded. "Not our technology, not our weapons, but our understanding that strength comes from diversity, that survival depends on change, and that even the harshest world can teach us the most valuable lessons." As the council moved to vote on the initiative, Crystal Song's lights pulsed with a pattern that the translators now recognized as joy. "Your people were feared because you came from a world that tried to kill you. Now you are valued because that same world taught you how to help others live. Emily smiled, watching as representatives from worlds once hostile to Earth now lined up to request biological defense partnerships. That's the final lesson Earth taught us, that sometimes the very things that make us dangerous can also make us the best protectors. The vote was unanimous. As humanity prepared to share their world's biological heritage with the galaxy, Sarah thought about how far they'd come. The species once feared for evolving on a death world were now celebrated for the same reason. They had shown the galaxy that life's greatest strength wasn't in domination or perfection, but in its endless capacity to adapt, to change, and to grow. The age of the Deathworlders had begun, not as conquerors, but as guardians, teaching the galaxy that sometimes the hardest worlds produce the most valuable lessons. And as humanity looked to the future, they knew that their greatest adventures still lay ahead, in helping forge a galaxy as resilient and adaptable as the world that had shaped them.